The other day I found this pretty cool microinteraction on Twitter by Nitish, and yeah, I really like it. I think it looks pretty good, and I thought that we could, try recreating it in Framer live. In this video, I actually haven't done this before, so you're gonna see my raw process of, creating something like this inside of Framer from start to finish. So yeah, if you want to learn these microinteractions in Framer, or components, variants, and interactions and how they work, I think this video will be really helpful for you. I'm gonna also leave a remix link in the description so you can get started with me and build alongside with me, because that's how you can learn the most. So yeah, my name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. Okay, so I think the first thing that we could do is just look at the interaction and see what exactly happens. So first of all, we have a button which says set status. And when we click that, it first of all has this bouncy effect. So it's not just a simple button, it has a really subtle movement even when we click it. So we have to keep that in mind. It will have this bouncy effect. And once we click it, as you can see, this top little thing pops up and we see some emojis there. When we hover over those emojis, we also see another Popover, which basically tells you what is the status for that emoji. So be right back, in a meeting, and stuff like that. And when we click one of these, the status button transforms into the status that you currently have or selected. So the little icon on the left changes to this emoji, and we get a little X on the right that we can click to remove the status and go back to the default state of the button. We also have some subtle details, for example how the text animates. As you can see, it has this letter animation, which I'm not sure if we can exactly recreate, but we can do something similar. We can also see some subtle details in how certain elements appear and disappear with blur and opacity. But yeah, I don't even want to yap around for any longer. I think it's best if we start building this up block by block. So yeah, let's open Framer. Again, if you want to build with me, make sure to open the remix link that I have in the description and just go to the starter page on the left pages panel and just start building with me. So I think what we're going to start with is the little button here, which we can see here. So yeah, let's build that first. So I'm going to just press T on my keyboard and then click here in the center of my screen and just write set status. And once we have that, I'm just rewrite this to status. So first of all, I'm going to just pick the right font. As you can see, it's kind of like Inter but rounded, much friendlier, much more playful, and I actually like this font a lot. So we're going to go with Open Rounded. And it's probably a little bit bolder, maybe semi-bold. Yeah, probably. And as you can see, it also has a letter spacing decreased, because here the letters are much tighter and actually it looks better in my opinion. For some reason, Inter has a little bit, I don't know, wider letter spacing. I like decreasing that sometimes. So yeah, something like this can work really well. So set status, and then we have a little icon, but first of all, let's just wrap it in a frame that has this little color. I can also just grab this color here. So in Framer, you can wrap elements in frames by just right-clicking and add stack or frame, but in this case we need stack because that is much better for responsiveness later down the line. So I'm going to add a stack, but there's also a shortcut for that, Option Command and Enter. So if you like shortcuts, you can also learn that. And so now you can see that this text layer on the left layers panel is wrapped in the stack. And we can call this stack button. Because this is the button, and then within we have the text. You can see though that the button itself, the frame, the stack that we created, is really large. I can also give it a fill color on the right, and that specific color that we copied from the original. You can see it's really wide. We don't really need this. What we need is something called fit, which basically makes sure that the width fits the the content within. So I'm going to select the button on the right panel I'm going to go to width and I'm going to set it to fit content. And you're going to see how it now snaps onto the text layer that we have. However, you can see that we have a little bit more space on the left, right, top, and bottom. So we can achieve that with something called padding. So I'm going to select the button, and then on the right, I'm going to go to padding, and I'm going to start messing around with that. I'm actually not too sure what's the exact size here, but maybe 16, and then I'm not sure. So I'm going to just start rounding the corners so we can, see it a little bit better. So I think we're going to have, fully rounded corners. Yeah, I think this might be okay, but I also think that maybe on the top and on the bottom we have a little bit less. So maybe 14, something like that. And yeah, this should be good. Something like this. Great. Also, I think that this text is not fully black, so I'm going to just grab the exact color and I'm going to paste it onto our design so we get the same color too. So that's great. And also, I'm not sure about the text size. Now it's 16. I don't know if I want to do 14, but maybe we're going to just keep 16 because we already have that, so it's fine. Okay, so now we have the base, and let's move on to now creating this little icon on the left. So I could go on and try finding something like this on the internet, but inside of Framer, one really great thing is that we can create our own icons because we have the design capabilities that we also have in Figma, for example. By the end of the day, we will have the publish button in the top right that we can use to publish this as a real working website. So that's a really great thing inside of Framer. So what I'm going to start with in terms of creating this icon is I'm going to just draw a little frame. So I'm going to press F on my keyboard, draw a frame here inside of this button. And you can see a little problem here, which is that this frame that I created is on top of the set status. But what I want is to, move it to the left. The way I can do that is by selecting the button, which is a stack. So it will have these stack settings on the right. And I can just set the direction to horizontal. So elements within will be positioned, horizontally. So this is pretty good. This is exactly what we need. The gap will be a little bit less, maybe 4 or 6. And then, yeah, this little frame here will be just the holder for our icon, and probably 20 pixels is a perfect size. So this frame will be renamed to icon, and it will not really have a fill color, to be honest. Great, that is perfect. And now I can just draw the icon itself, which is 2 circles. So it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to just press down O on my keyboard. This brings me to the vector tool, and within the vector tool to the oval. So if I draw with O, it's going to create a little circle for me. I'm going to press Option H and V on my keyboard. This makes sure that the element that I'm currently selecting is centered within its parent, which is a really useful shortcut. But if you're not a fan of shortcuts, you can also go to the top right and click one of these little icons to horizontally and vertically center the currently selected element. So we have this little circle here. It's probably not a fill color, but it has a stroke, maybe 2 pixel width, and then the color will be just copied, and I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to duplicate this, so Command D. I'm going to just make it larger, and to make sure that it's dashed, I can just go to the right and start playing around with the array. So something like this, but as you can see, it's pretty sharp, and we need rounded, like caps and stuff. So I'm going to go here and turn on the rounded version for both the cap and join. And yeah, I don't know if this array is good, but I think this is what we have on the original too. Maybe the first one here in the center is a little bit smaller, so I'm gonna try that. Maybe make this one smaller too. Yeah, I think that's gonna be okay. Not exactly the same, but yeah, pretty good. Maybe 3.5 array. Yeah, that might be a little bit more accurate. So that's about it. I'm going to leave this icon like this. And what I'm going to also do, is, just for the sake of simplicity or just to keep everything organized, is I'm going to basically just select both of these ovals, then press Command G. This will wrap them in a group. And then I'm going to make this group a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the group, make it larger. But with that, I'm making everything larger as well. So I'm going to then move the oval back to its 16 size and then the center one to 6. So now everything should be okay. However, something looks off because, oh, okay, so I just realized what's the problem. So the way groups work inside a framer is that it cannot be larger than the largest element within. So yeah, it's not really gonna work now that I'm trying to make the group larger. So we're gonna just keep it like this. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna just right click this group and create a vector set. And what I'm going to be able to do here within the vector set is make, the vector itself larger. So I'm going to set the size to 20, and then the group within will be centered. So that's how we're going to make this work. The icon set can be named, I don't know, our icons. and yeah, basically that's it. We have our little icon here. Maybe I'm going to make it 20 pixels like this. And yeah, that should be great. So we have created a vector set, we have designed our own icon inside the framer, pretty good. And now we can move on to our next step. So let's take a quick look what happens. As you can see, when we click this, it has a really subtle bounce. So yeah, maybe first of all we can just create that. What you have to understand is that in Framer, these bounces usually are created with a scale effect, because we have to scale the element down. As you can see, it gets a little smaller when we click it. The way we do that is again with scale. Scale property can be found on the right panel. So if we select the button, here's transforms on the right. And if we scale it down, as you can see, it's scaling down. Perfect. However, if you are like, okay, I'll be able to add this scale to this element, and you just want to move to the next step, which is actually creating a component for then, creating the interaction, you just right click this button, create a component, and then you're going to start noticing really quickly that you no longer have the transforms on the right panel when you select this button here. And yeah, this is a little limitation that you have to keep in mind. Only elements within the variant can be transformed. As you can see, if I just select the icon, transform is here. So the trick that we have to do before turning this into a component is just wrapping the button in another frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just right click this and add a stack. So with this, I created a stack which wraps the button. I can just set this one to fit content as well. I'll set the overflow to visible, so to make sure that when the button gets larger or smaller, it's not gonna like clip, but it's gonna overflow. And this is the element I'm gonna call button, and then the button that was, originally button, it will now be named content. Perfect. So now I can turn the button into a component, and I'll now here on the component canvas have the ability to select the content frame within and go to the right panel to add a scale effect to it and scale it down if I want to do that, which is pretty good. I like that. So the first variant here will be just called default, because this is the default button that we see when we just land on this page. So default is good. Then we can also add the hover state, which we don't really have on the original. We just hover over. We don't really have a hover state. Well, we could have a hover state, but to keep everything a little bit simpler, I'm just going to recreate exactly. So we're going to skip hover and we're going to go straight to pressed. So I'm going to add the pressed state to this variant, and the pressed state will be just a scale down effect on the content frame within the component. So on the right, transforms, scale, and maybe 0.95. Perfect. Now if I go to preview with Command P, I can hover over and I can click, and as you can see, it's nicely scaling down It's pretty subtle. You can set the scale to a lower value if you want to. That will have like a larger, like more intense scale down effect. But I think this is pretty cool. However, if I click really fast and multiple times, the little text will get selected. I don't like that, so I'm going to go to the primary. And here I'm going to select the text, and on the right I'm going to give it a style which is called user select. This will be set to none. This property basically prevents us from selecting the text here, so even if I click really fast, that text is no longer going to be selected. Perfect. So, okay, I think this is great. We have the button, we can click it, it bounces. Let me just actually see. Yeah, maybe, actually I think everything is perfect. I don't even really want to change the transition. Maybe the scale can be slightly, bigger, maybe 0.9, so it has a more intense effect. And I'm going to maybe also change the transition from 0.4 to 0.6, so the timing is also a little bit slower, so we're just a little bit closer to the original effect that we can see right here. Perfect. Great. So now let's see what else we have here. I think the next step will be, creating this little popover that we see when we click the button. So how do we create that? Well, first of all, I think we need to create the element itself, and then we can, think about how the hell is it gonna be opened when we click the button. So yeah, I think I'll just measure first of all the size. Probably I just have a feeling that the size is same as on the button. Exactly, that's right. Yeah, I think that's all I need here. Let's go back and actually create this. So if we check the height of our button on the right, it's 48. So we can just press F on our keyboard, draw a frame that has 48 pixel height, and then the width will be set to something random for now. And yeah, the background color will be white. That is perfect. And if you pay close attention, the element here has a subtle border. So I'm gonna again try to copy that color. You can also just, grab your own color that you like, but here, just for the sake of simplicity, we're gonna copy the color, and we're gonna fully round the corners. That's perfect. And then we're gonna just draw, first of all, let's just keep everything organized. On the left, I'm gonna rename the frame to Popover. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create little elements within that will basically have the same background color as the button, but they will just have simple emojis within. Now, I'm going to stop here for a moment because we have to, really think this through, because I already kind of know that, you can see that when we hover over these little circles with the emojis, they move up, and they also have a popover with the little text. So we know that they also have an interaction, so we can know that, okay, that will probably also be a component, right? Because you hover over it and something happens. And also it's reused, all these little emojis are the same and they have the same interaction. So we don't want to do the work a bunch of times. We just want to make sure we do one component and then reuse that instance a bunch of times. So what we're going to do is we're going to just draw one frame, set it up once, create a component, the interaction, everything, and then just reuse that multiple times. So in this section, you're going to learn how to create a reusable component that have variables, so you can change the emoji per instance and also the text that pops up here. So this is going to be a great part in the video. So inside of the popover, I'm going to draw a frame here. I don't know about the size just yet, but what I can see is it's not going to be great if we just can drag it anywhere, because this tells me that the type, the positioning type is absolute, and I want relative because that's best for responsiveness. But relative only is available if the parent frame is a stack, which is not the case here. The popover frame is not a stack. So to turn it into a stack, we just have to click this layout button on the right. Now the frame within that we drew is now, as you can see, it cannot be positioned anywhere. It's going to stick to the center, according to the stack settings that we have on the parent. So that's going to be perfect for us for now. I'm going to recolor this on the right panel. Just grab the color from the button, and I'll just tweak the size. I'm not really sure the sizing we have around here, but maybe I'm going to just select the parent and set the distribute to start so it moves here. And then I'm going to just start increasing the padding here. And also let me just surround the corners of the frame so we have a better understanding of what we are doing. So as you can see, this looks kind of okay, maybe 6. Yeah, that actually looks really great. 36 for the frame size and then 6 pixel padding around. Yeah, that looks accurate. Maybe it's 8 actually here. I don't know, but this is going to be fine for us. I think it looks great. Cool. So what I'm going to do with this frame is I'm going to rename it to, I don't know, status. So status, because I don't know, this is one status that we can select from. Status, and then within the status, we're going to have a text layer. So I'm pressing down T on my keyboard and then clicking here. But we're not going to have, I don't know, text here, but emoji. So on my little Mac computer, I can just press down Control, Command, and Space. This brings up the emoji selector, and I can paste in anything. So let's see what we have here. Okay, we have a palm. Okay, great. We have it here as well. And we're going to just center it with Option H and V again. And I think the size is also great. Like we are on 16 and that looks about right. I can also check it with like a little face. And yeah, but that looks great. That looks actually great. So we're gonna stick to this size. So we're gonna do a palm, and I'll just rename the text layer here to emoji. So we have the status frame, within we have an emoji, and what else we need? We'll also need an element for the be right back, right? So first of all, I'm gonna just try to measure the size again. Because if we want to recreate something accurately, we have to know the size in relation to other elements that we've already designed. So for example, I can measure it to this element here or to this frame size here, and it's actually not following anything. So I think it's a new size that is being introduced here, which is a little bit weird because it's really close to this one here. So I'll probably just okay, I'm gonna go with 34. So let's just press F on our keyboard, draw a frame, 34 height. The color is again same as here, fully rounded corners, and make it a little bit larger. This is gonna be, I don't know, text or like status name. That's a great name. Okay, it's gonna be turned into a stack on the right. And then just maybe press down T on our keyboard and click here. And do we actually know what is the text on the palm? We don't, but we can guess, right? On vacation. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna set the width to fit content, and I'll just add a little space to the left and right with padding. So I'm going to set the padding to 14 maybe, and then the text size will be smaller probably, right? 14 or something like that. But the color is different here. It's not pure black. It's more like grayish. And also I'm not sure about the width, the weight of the text, but probably not medium, so I'm going to keep it semi-bold. Great, that looks great. The 14 padding on the left right looks great as well. Maybe 12 actually. Sorry guys, I'm just really trying to always like accurately recreate everything. Okay, so 12 on the left right, that's good. Now we also have these little bubbles here, kind of like, you know, some sort of, I don't know, iMessage vibes here. So yeah, a little circle. I'm just gonna press an F on my keyboard, draw one here, same color, and then it's gonna have episode position. So this is where episode position is actually useful when we actually want to position something in a really custom way. So this is something that we cannot really do with the relative. So I'm just going to move it down here. As you can see, as I'm moving it down, it's no longer visible. Why? Because the status name frame is set to overflow clip. To set it to visible, and now overflowing parts will be actually visible. I'm going to fully round the corners here and just move it and just tweak the positioning here. So yeah, I'm gonna just mess around with this for a little bit, maybe 12 pixels, and we're gonna just duplicate this. Actually, I'm gonna name it circle on the left. I'm gonna duplicate it with Command and D. I'm gonna move it here, and the size will be a little bit smaller. Something like this. Yeah, that actually looks pretty accurate. Okay, so after some extra tweaking, I think we're pretty good. And so what you also have to pay really close attention to when you're adding these little bubbles is that they are pinned to the left and to the bottom. As you can see, these are blue here on the episode positioning on both of these circles, right? Because if we have some other text, the bubbles will be, staying right there. If these are, not pinned to the left, you're going to see that those bubbles are going to be moving around like crazy. So yeah, they have to keep distance from the left side. So we're going to keep the left and bottom pins. Cool. Great. So this is perfect. We can turn, I think we can, actually I'm just wondering if I should turn this into a component. Probably not. I could actually, why not, right? Yeah, why not? Let's turn it into a component. So right click, create component, and then to make sure that this can be customized per instance, we'll turn the text into a variable. So first of all, I'm going to rename the variant to default, and I'm going to go back just to show you that now I cannot customize the text. There's no property on the right. So I have to click within the component, select the text, and on the right, find the content, and it will have this little plus button where I can click create variable, plain text. So now, even if I have 2 or 3, I'll be able to customize customize this per instance, as you can see, which is pretty good. Since this status name component will be popping in when we are hovering over this little status, it has to be within the status in some way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the status frame that we created here into a stack. So right click, add stack, and this stack will be set to fit content. It will be called status. Then what we had previously as status will be content, and status frame. Yeah, basically we're just gonna copy this on vacation status name component, Command X, and then we're gonna paste it within the status, Command V. And we're gonna set it to episode position, and we will just move it up. Well, as you can see, it's not visible, so we'll have to set the status to overflow visible, but that's not going to be enough because the pop over has to also be overflow visible so that, it's visible as, all of these frames are overflowing. I'm going to just try to tweak the positioning. I'm not actually too sure about, yeah, as you can see, this bubble here is centered to the actual status. So that's something we have to keep in mind. And the spacing here can be just, I don't know, memorized by our eyes. Okay, so let's see if this is actually centered. Kind of centered, I am not sure. Yeah, maybe one to the left. Yeah, something like this can work. And again, pins are really important because now if I don't work on the pins, I'll have something else here and it's gonna get messed up, as you can see. So it has to be pinned to the left, okay? to the left, really important. And now I can do some other text here and it will keep the position. Cool. Great. So now we have the status, within we have a content and the status name. And I think this time we can just create a component that we can reuse for all of these little items here. By the way, I think I'm going to skip this because it's also not really clicked in the demo, so I don't really know what it's supposed to do. So we'll just have, little emojis for all of these. Perfect. So right click the status, create the component. By default, we don't really see the status name. So we have to think about how the status name will come in and customize the default variant of the component in a way that we keep in mind that interaction or animation that will happen. Because how animations are created in Framer is we have two variants. We have variant 1, variant 2. We do some sort of change on these two variants. Maybe the opacity is 0 on one variant and 1 on the other variant. And as we move between the variants, the property, let's say the opacity or the position, will be animated. And if we want to do like an opacity change or a movement as this status comes in, we have to keep that in mind, because then, we have to set the opacity to 0. We kind of have to move it down because, as you can see, it is sort of moving in from the bottom. And it's also looks like it's scaling in, to be honest. So it also has to be scaled down on the default variant. So all of these little changes will be implemented here. So first of all, I'm going to move it slightly downwards. Then I will kind of have to remember how many times I moved it down. So 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe with my arrow keys. And then I'm going to also scale it down, maybe 0.95. And I'll also add styles, filters, blur, because as you can see, it's coming in from a blurred state, which is, by the way, a really neat little trick for making your animations and movements a little bit smoother. So note this down for yourself. Now I'm adding blur. I cannot see it in the preview because I'm zoomed in too much. So zoom out a little bit so we can see the actual blur value. Maybe blur 3 is going to be enough. And then the opacity will be set to 0. Now you're going to notice one thing, which is that the variant is not renamed to default. So I'm going to do that, default. And another thing, which is if I go into preview with Command and P, I can still hover over this text and kind of, I'll have my, cursor changing for like selecting the text. I don't know if my screen recorder actually records that, but believe me, as I, hover around this area where, the element is actually, it just has opacity 0, my cursor changes. And this is not a great thing because people actually don't know that something is actually waiting there to come in. And it's a little awkward if we give it away with the cursor change. So to prevent this, what I usually do is I select this element that shouldn't be actually visible for people even when they hover over the area. I just go to the right to styles and I set pointer events to none. This basically means that this layer is now no longer interactive. Pointer events, none. So I hover over this area and nothing really happens, which is perfect. I also don't want to select the emoji, so I'll also go to the emoji and go to styles, user select, and none. So this is now actually perfect. Great. One more thing I kind of didn't think about, which is the fact that, the little emoji circle frame thing will move up. So how do we do that? Because it's not absolutely positioned so that we could move it up. I could add bottom padding, but it will only work if the height is fixed and direction is vertical and then distribute is end. Yeah, that will be good. Cool. So now I'll just click here, create a new variant, which is going to be called hover. And first things first, bottom padding is added to move it up. Maybe, I actually don't know how much it moves up, maybe 2-3 pixels. And then the status will have opacity 1, scale 1, and then we'll move up. I don't remember how many, 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. and the blur will be set to 0 as well, and the pointer events now will be auto, even though we don't really interact with this, but let's just set it to auto. Perfect, that is great. We can now create the interaction, because now if I hover over, nothing really happens. So I have to actually connect these two variants with interactions. So the default is selected, I click here to this little icon or hover over this and just connect to the hover, and then it will ask us which is going to be the trigger. So is it a click interaction? Is it a peer? What is this? Well, it's a mouse enter, because when I enter with my mouse over the default variant, I want to go to the hover. I'm going to just click away, so this interaction is activated, and then I'm going to select the hover, and then here we're going to go back when? Well, on mouse leave. When we leave this little element, we go back to the default state. I'm going to remove the mouse enter from the hover, because it's added here as well. Everything you do in the primary variant is added on all variants. So this is something you have to keep in mind. Since we added an mouse enter interaction on the default, it was added on the hover too. So I'll just remove that. So the only thing we have here is the mouse slave interaction that takes us back to the default. So now if I preview this, it works perfectly. So you can see, I like this very much. One thing that I don't like is that when I hover over, I don't really see my pointer cursor. So I'm going to go select cursor, web cursor, and pointer. Great. Hopefully the screen recorder also records my correct cursor. Okay, one thing that I will try tweaking is the transition. It will be a little bit slower. Yeah, that looks great. So now let's see how it looks within this little, holder frame with the border, and it looks great. Maybe I'm just not sure if maybe the emoji moves up a little bit more than it should. Maybe, I don't know, actually. Maybe I'm just gonna move it up by 2 pixels, and that's gonna be fine. Great. So at this point, we can just set the popover to fit content, and then just duplicate this a few times. Great. We're gonna have, let's say, 5. So yeah, we have 5 here. And then I'm gonna set the gap between these to a little bit lower value. I actually don't know what we have there, but maybe 4. That should be good. Cool. So now we have to find a way to set different emojis and different names, status names for each of these, because now we see the same thing on all of these. But as you can see, it already works really well, and the animations and everything are looking really nice. So I'm going to double click into this, and we're going to use the same, create variable thingy to make sure that some of these properties inside of the component are customizable per instance. So I want to customize the emoji that is here, so I'm going to select that on the default primary. Really important. If you click or select this little element on the hover, it's going to only add the variable to the hover, and it's only going to change on the hover state per instance. So you have to create these variables on the default primary variant. This is really important. So emoji is selected. I'm going to create a plain text again. I'm going to call it emoji. And then I'm going to also select the status name component inside of the primary. And here, this is why it's a little bit, easy to mess up here, because you don't really see the status name component on the primary. So you might want to just select it here on the hover. But again, as I said, if you add the variable here, it's not going to, work nicely. So you have to select it here on the default primary. And on the right, the title will be turned into status name variable. So now, if I select each of these status components, on the right, I have the emoji and the status name. So let's see what we have. Out sick. So I'm going to just set the sick emoji here, and out sick. And if I hover over that, as you can see, everything changed and it's just perfect. So I'm just going to go over all of these other little elements and just set the meeting one, which is going to have sort of like a calendar emoji. I think this one, or actually it was different, but that should be fine. Yeah, let's use this in a meeting. So you can just also set these up. Maybe you can also use different emojis or status names. Be right back. And then the last one is a little bus commuting. Great, so we have everything. I can just test it really quickly. As I hover over these, everything works perfectly. Cool, so as you can see, our process worked out really well so far. We've been, just grabbing little elements in this larger micro-interaction and just recreating everything step by step, block by block. We started with the set status. It is nice and bouncy as we click it. Then we recreated the popover that we're gonna see when we, click the set status. And we also created these individual, status components that we have here. And the hover state is created on that component level. So the little element moves up and the commuting or the status name appears. So now our job is to show this when we click the set status, just moves there. And the next job will be to somehow make sure that when, for example, be right back is clicked, first of all, this whole thing disappears. Then set status changes to be right back. And then this icon changes to this little emoji. As you can see, a bunch of things change, and also a little X appears there. So yeah, we have to do a lot of things. So hopefully that's going to also work out nicely. I'm not really sure how we're going to do that, but we're going to go again step by step. So let's go back, and I'm just thinking about actually turning the popover into a component. I don't know if that's a great idea, but probably shouldn't be a bad idea. So I'm just gonna right click and create a component out of that. I'm gonna call this primary variant default, just the usual stuff. And then I'm gonna put it within the button that we have here. So I'm gonna just press Command X. Now it's on my clipboard. I'm gonna go within this and then press Command and V here, so it's pasted in. Again, you can see it's using relative positioning, which is great if you need like a, I don't know, row of items or something like that. Now we want to have something a little bit more freeform, so we can position it to the top. So I'm going to use absolute position, and I'll just use my arrow keys to move it here. Center with Option and Age. And yeah, I'm not too sure what's the distance here, but I'm just going to eyeball it. So maybe 8, 6, something like this. And so again, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of figure out the animation that we see here. So I think it's also scaling and moving up, probably, getting opacity. So kind of like the same effect that we have on the status name. So what I'm going to do here on the default is I'm going to move it down 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to also scale it down. So scale 0.95. I'm going to set the opacity to 0. I'm going to set the style filters blur to 3. And I'm going to also set pointer evens to none. If you watched this video so far, you should know why we do that. Perfect. That's great. And on the, well, actually on the, okay, so when do we want to show this? When we click it, right? So we have to create a new variant, which is called, that's actually really interesting. I'm not too sure how we should do this, because if we create a separate variant, let's say clicked, where we move this popover in, so the blur is removed, it moves up, 1, 2, 3, 4, scale is 1. Then the problem will be that, we can create the interaction here, so we go there on click. My problem is that when we, for example, click be right back, and we eventually transform the set status button into something else. Okay, I just realized that it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so that's why we have to think everything through, because I thought that when we click be right back, set status transforms to be right back. I was like, okay, then what if I click this again and I see all of these, popovers again? That's not going to be great because the clicked variant doesn't have the be right back styling, but the set status styling. So I was like, how is it going to work? Like I have to create a clicked variant for each of these versions, but no, I just realized it's not right. I'm dumb because here in this state we cannot click it. I mean, what we see on the preview or on this little demo video is that we can click the little X and then we go back to the default, which makes me really happy because this means that what we have here is going to work. We have a default primary variant and we have a clicked variant. We go to the clicked when we, just click the default. And actually, I don't really know if we can, maybe I'm just going to create an interaction where if we click the clicked, we go back to the default. That's something I want to do. And then I will do the pressed state here as well, so that this little thingy button scales down. So now we should have this, we can click this, works perfectly. And now we have to find a way to, that's not great, we're gonna fix that. Yeah, but we have to find a way to make sure that when we click Animating or be right back, this state transforms. Now we have a problem because when we click be right back, for example, we go back to the default because we have connected the interaction from this complete clicked variant back to the default. And the reason why it doesn't work now is because this element here, the popover, is part of the variant. Even though it's up here, it's part of this whole variant. So even if this is clicked, the interaction will be triggered and we're going to navigate back to the default. And this is not what we want because we'll need separate interactions for this part when we click one of these emojis. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the interaction. We're going to select the variant on the right, top right. We're going to remove the interaction. So now if we click this, nothing happens. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to select the content frame within the clicked variant, and we're going to connect the interaction from that because the content frame is only the little set status button. So just create the click interaction from that element. So now I can click set status, it will go here. If I click commuting, nothing. Actually, something happens, something weird happens here. That's actually weird. So if I click this, the set status gets smaller. Anyone knows why that is happening? I guess I'm not too sure. So content frame here is scale, it should be scale 1. On the pressed state, I think I kind of know. I kind of know what is going on here. That is a bit of an issue because, for the same reason what I was explaining previously, the pressed state also triggers when we click the popover, which is not great. This is not great. So we have to kind of rework this whole thing just a little bit, so it doesn't get messed up so easily. So what I'm thinking is that we're gonna do the scale down effect on the set status on a separate component level. So what I'm gonna do, this is why I said it's gonna be a raw creation process, so you can see the raw reality of creating a micro interaction like this in Framer. Sometimes you have to step back a little bit and then go again, try a different solution. So in this case too, I have to just maybe I don't have to delete these variants, I'm not too sure yet, but what I'm pretty sure about is that I have to select this. Actually, I like starting over actually, so I'll just delete everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the content, and I'm going to turn it in, or just name it set status. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it content. I'm going to right click, add the stack, This tag will be with fit content. The default is going to be fit content as well, the variant itself. This will be called set status button. And so within we have the content frame that we initially had. And this will be turned into a component. And on this component level, this is where we're going to mess around with the pressed state, right? So default, and I'm just going to go pressed and then scale it down. That's it. 0.9, the transition will be a little different, 0.6, just to keep it consistent with the rest of the elements. And now, since this is handled on a different level, I will have no problem with this because, yeah, it will just work here as well. And I don't have to create a pressed state here. So that is really nice. I can just now create a clicked state, clicked, and again, animate the popover in. So 1, 2, 3, 4 up with the arrows, opacity, blur back, pointer to auto, scale to 1. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So now I just have to connect from the set status button. Actually, it's a better idea to connect from set status, I think. So, yeah, I think that's gonna be great. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go select the set status button, connect it to clicked. It's gonna be a click interaction, and then here I'm gonna connect it back to the default. So let's take a quick look if it actually works. And it works. Let's see if I can click these. Yes, I can, and nothing happens just yet, which is great, actually. Cool. Lovely. Like it, like it, like it, like it. Okay. So next step is to create different versions of the set status button so we can animate the icon that is on the left and the text here, and also reveal a little X. So first of all, we can just, go within the button, the set status button, and I think this is the level where we're gonna create different variants, like, I don't know, on vacation, blah, blah, blah. Just one more second of thinking just to make sure that it will work. Yeah, I think we're gonna create variants here. We click, we go there. Should work pretty well. Great, so again, we're on the set status button level within this component, and in order to create these variants, we'll have to make some modifications on the primary variant. What are those changes? Well, first of all, we have to prepare some text layers because we're going to have set status, we're going to have on vacation, be right back, blah, blah, blah. You have to rework the icon so that it can reveal other icons. Probably it's going to also be its own component. And we have to create a little close button that we can place to the right. Let's start from left to right. So first of all, let's do the icon. So I think we're just gonna press T on our keyboard and do like a palm first of all. And I'm not too sure about the size, to be honest. Maybe it's gonna be a little bit larger here. 16. Yeah. Yeah. That looks great. That looks great. So we're gonna have a palm. And we're going to create all of the other options as well. So to kind of remember what we need, I'm just going to take a quick screenshot and put it right here. So we have the palm. I'm going to duplicate it with Command and D. I'm going to make sure that every single one of these emojis are centered with Option H and V. And I'm just going to make sure that each one has a different emoji. So this is sick. Command and D, and this one is going to be the calendar. Command and D, this is going to be the running shoes. Then we're going to have a bus as well. Remove the little text I added accidentally. A bus. Perfect. So we have all of the emojis here, and of course, at any given time, we're just going to see one element here. So let's say I set all of these emojis to opacity 0, but one more thing just to note. As you can see, when this icon changes, just pay attention to the blurry behavior. You can see how it has like a blurred transition. The icon blurs out and then the emoji blurs in, which means one thing, we have to set all of the elements that are not currently visible to a blurred version. So style, filters, blur, and probably 2 blur will be more than enough. And then the icon, which is the parent, should be also visible, so the blur is not clipped. Great, all of the emojis are also opacity 0. And then I'll just have to create a component out of the icon frame. So I can create the version where it's just an icon and then palm emoji. This is going to be a separate variant where the vector is set to filter, blur, to blur, and then opacity 0. And then the palm is opacity 1 and blur 0. And I have to do this for each, right? So I'm going to go to... Actually, I'm thinking if there's an easier way to do that, but I'm just going to do it like, who cares, sick, opacity back down here on the palm, then the sick one goes to 1 opacity, 0 blur, next one is cal, okay, calendar comes in, next one is gonna be shoe, running, let's just go running, 0 opacity, 2 blur on the calendar that animates out, and then we're animating in the shoes, and then bus, 1 opacity, 0 blur. Perfect. But something is off here. The running shoes should be 0 opacity. Great. So that's it. That's all. I'm going to go back. That's something we have. We'll be able to just switch the variant of the icon component, and the animation will be just there because we have defined these variants in a really specific way. So okay, default is done, and not even we are not done with the default because we have to go from left to right. Now we are at the text. So in terms of text, we just have to create all the versions. So we kind of have to remember all the names for the status, for all the status names. Like I actually done it on vacation, out sick, in a meeting, be right back, commuting. Okay, we'll see if I can remember all of them. Let's go back here and I think I'm just going to duplicate them and just write on vacation, then out sick. Again, really important, I'm doing this on the primary variant. Oopsie daisy, this should be out sick, not out sick vacation. In a meeting, then we have be right back and commuting. Well done. Okay, so as we see it here, there's a little text effect that we'll try to recreate. It will not be exactly the same, but sort of. So it's just an animation where each letter comes in from the bottom. That's basically it. I don't know if they are blurred, probably not really. Also, they are probably just scaling in as well. Like they're scaled down slightly. Okay. So I'm going to select all the text layers, and on the right, I'm going to go Effects, Text. I'm going to customize it. So blur will be 0. Scale will be 0.9. I don't know, 0.9, 0.8. Not sure which one is right. And then the offset will be 4. Shouldn't be too large. So we're moving each letter down. It's going to be coming in from that position. The transition here should be... Well, I don't know, actually. Like, we'll have to see. Well, that looks pretty fast. Is it that fast here? Well, it's quite fast, but not that much. So I'm selecting all the texts again to customize the appear effect on all of them. Maybe 35. Yeah, that looks pretty fine. I think that's great. And the trick is that we set the visibility of the elements that we don't want to see, or the text layers we don't want to see, to visible no. That's basically it. So set status is here, and when we're going to switch to a version where the text says something else, I think will be good. So for example, just to give you, an example, we go to on vacation, or let's just call it palm. We switch the icon to palm. We set the set status to visibility no. The on vacation will be visible yes. And hopefully this transition will look sort of okay. It will not be exactly the same again, as I mentioned it previously, but it should be good. I'm just going to test it here really quickly with a click interaction. That was a little bug in Framer. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, not bad. Not bad. It's fine. It's fine. I'm going to remove the click interaction. We don't need that. And yeah, so one more thing we have to put here is an X, a little close thingy. So I'm going to draw a frame here inside of the primary, and I don't know how large it is. Kind of have to eyeball maybe 20. The color is this, fully rounded, and then we have, I'm gonna name it close, and then we have a little X within. So just gonna draw it by pressing down P to grab the path or pen tool to draw a path, and then we're gonna round it, set it to white color, center it, duplicate, and mirror it here. That looks great. A slightly larger, yeah, something like this. I feel like this is too large, but then it's too small. I don't know. This is better, I think, overall. Cool. Does it have a hover state? Yeah, it gets a little bit darker. When we hover over. So I'm gonna just turn this into a component, the close button, and then I'm gonna create a hover state for this so it changes color. Perfect. We're gonna call this default variant, and we're gonna give it a web cursor pointer. So when we hover over, it shows us the pointer cursor. Pretty good. I don't know why the X got offsetted. That is sort of like a framer bug, I think. So I'm gonna try to group this path, and hopefully now it's gonna look, it's centered here, and it's not really centered here. So again, this is great to see because you're probably running into stuff like this. So you just have to look for workarounds when this happens. What if we wrap it in a frame? We make this frame large and we center the group within the frame. Is it gonna work? No, that's not great. Okay, then maybe turn it into a layout, the wrapper frame that we created. And there you go. Now it's centered properly. Again, every single software that you use have little weird problems. You just have to be a person who knows how to find solutions to those problems. Let's fix the height here. Maybe I'm just gonna set it to fit content on this close button element, and let's see how this element animates in. As you can see, it comes in from the right side and probably blur and opacity. So absolute is going to be the positioning. I'm going to move it to the right. I'm going to set opacity 0, filters blur 2, 3 maybe. Pointer events none, so we cannot click it when it's not visible. And then here it's going to come in by setting it to relative position, 1 opacity, 0 blur, and pointer events auto. Lovely. I think it's gonna have a nice transition here. Let's just quickly take a look. Yeah, I mean it's okay. It's fine. It looks not bad at all. Great. So we have this, and at this point we can just set up all of the different emoji versions. So we have the palm, then we have the sick, where we change the icon here to the sick version, sick, and we hide the on vacation text. Set this one to yes. Actually, I'm going to do a little trick here. I'm going to set up all of them like sick, cal, running, and bus, because then you can just select all the text layers at once. So here the out sick, then here the meeting, here the be right back. And I deselected everything. So commuting, be right back, in a meeting, out sick, and then set all of them to yes at once. Let's just play with the spacing here so it doesn't look weird. Well, it's still weird, but it's gonna be fine. And then just switch the emojis here. Commuting. Lovely, lovely work. Cool. So that's it on this level. I think what we'll have to do here is we have to create an event for this close button. So when we click that, we fire an event so we can create interactions on this level, but we're going to do it a little bit later when it actually makes sense. And you can also see why we do that. So now we go back to the button component level. Here we have, this clicked version set up. And here we're going to also create versions for each emoji. So we're going to do a palm. So we created a variant from the default. So default was clicked, and then I clicked here to create a new variant. So this is something I call palm. I switched the set status button to the palm version, and then that's basically it. That's all I do, I think. One more thing I do is I remove this interaction from the set status button here, because when I click this thing here on this variant, I don't want to go anywhere. The only interaction that I want is gonna happen from here, like when I click this element here. Okay, so now let's just test it with these 3 components or variants. Now when I click the palm here, probably nothing is going to happen because we still have to set up the interaction. But how? How can I make sure that when something within this large component is clicked, we do an interaction? Because as you can see, we can only select this large popover. So what do? Like we detach this to make sure that we get access to these elements within? No. We go inside of the popover and we select these little elements here, these little components, and on the right we create an event. So I'm going to select the first one, create an event. I'm going to call it, it's going to be a click event, and I'm going to call it palm. Then I'm going to select this one. I'm going to create a new event. I'm going to call it, I think it's the sick one. And then this is going to be call. So we're just creating events. All of these are click events. And this is how we're going to be able to trigger interactions when each of these are clicked, because now on the button level, if I select this popover here on the clicked variant, I get all of these options here and I can create new transitions from these. But again, I have to be smart. I have to connect from the default so it's applied everywhere and I don't have to mess around with this too much. So I'm going to select the popover on the default, and when palm is clicked, I want to go to palm. That's perfect. But when I click this little close, I want to go back to the default. But again, when I select the set status, there is no closed interaction. It's just one click, which is, firing when the whole set status button is clicked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go within, and I'm going to select the close and create an event. So interaction, new event. It's going to be a click event. I'm going to call it close. So when the close button is clicked, we do an event. Should be good. So I'm going to select the set status again on the primary. When close transition, we want to transition to default. Perfect. And since we do it on the primary, I don't have to go here on the palm and apply it, because it's going to be applied here, as you can see, since we did it on the primary. Cool. Let's take a quick look. Set status, click it, bouncy, appearing, nice. I hover over each of these and then I go on vacation. Yes, lovely. Okay, that's great. Let's see if this works too. I'm really happy. This is really great. So we have everything. I'm so happy that we were able to build this live, because you just see how, how something like this is created from complete scratch. So at this point, all you have to do is to create all the little variants. So on this button level, because we have the palm, now we're gonna also do the sick. So here we're gonna go to sick. And then we're gonna have, what is the other one? Call, running, and the bus. Okay. Sick, call, running, bus. Okay. So we have all the variants. Now we have to set up the interactions too. So I'm going to go back to the primary, select the popover, and on the right, I just have to connect these interactions. So again, just so you remember, these are coming from within the popover, and these are connected to these little elements. So for example, the palm event is a click event coming from this little element. So basically, if I connect something to palm here, it's going to be triggered when this element here is clicked. And that happens with the sick, call, the running, and the bus as well. So I can just select sick here, new transition, transition me to sick. Call, new transition, transition me to call. Running, transition, transition me to running. And bus, new transition, transition me to bus. Since again, we did it on the primary, no need for making any adjustments on any of these variants. It's just gonna work perfectly. So let's do a last preview before ending this video. Set status, click it, bouncy bouncy, really nice. Actually, let me just make it a little bit larger so you can have a better experience really taking this interaction in. Maybe 4. Oh, actually that looks a little too large. Let's do 2. So click, bouncy, appears, really nice. I can hover over these, perfect. Let's check commuting, absolutely amazing. Let's remove this. And you can see how, for example, the icon also animates really nicely. It's not an abrupt change, it's smooth and nice, which is really lovely. Maybe this button here is too large compared to the emoji, or the emoji could be a little bit larger, but these are just final tweaks that you can do on your own. Let's remove this. Let's go in a meeting. Everything works perfectly. Running, just be right back. Amazing. I love it. Great. So cool. Again, shout out to Nilesh for creating this amazing interaction for this video. And it wasn't created for this video, but I was able to use it to teach you something new, hopefully. So yeah, big shout out to Nilesh. And yeah, I really do hope that it was a helpful video and you were able to learn a bunch of things about components, how components work, how variants work, and how different variants are connected to create interactions. I think it was also really helpful to see how you actually have to treat these micro interactions as you have to think about smaller building blocks when you're building something like this. So it's not going to be just one component, but it's going to be a component that has multiple smaller components as building blocks within. So again, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any doubts or questions, or you got stuck somewhere, make sure to drop a comment. Even if you didn't get stuck, just write me a comment, because it just helps the algorithm. So yeah, again, thanks for watching. Go to Frame University for other components, resources, and yeah, Framer stuff. If you're using Framer or learning Framer, it's probably gonna be a helpful resource for you. So yeah, that's for this video. Make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.